Welcome to this week's episode of the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijoma, and I thank you for joining me for this week's conversation. But before we get into it, if you would like to support the podcast, please go to convome.com/support and you'll be able to do so. And now on to my conversation. This week, I'm conversing with Christina. She runs her own book publishing company, Sari-Sari Storybooks. And before we jump into our conversation, I want to say a quick thank you and shout out to Robert Leo Trujillo. He's at Robert_Tress on Instagram, and he gave a shout out for Christina as a guest on this podcast. So thank you to Robert. Okay. Back to Christina. Christina is doing multiple things. She runs a children's book publishing company and she has an Etsy shop as well. And she's found a way to blend the two together. And we're going to talk about that. So Christina, welcome to the podcast and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you, Ijoma. Thanks for having me.
It's great to be here. You're so welcome. I'm glad that you said yes on that post. I'm sure you had no idea what was going on, but it was a fun post and Robert connected us. So I'm glad to have you on. Now, as we jump into it, can you tell us how would you describe yourself? I already want to say storyteller because I have a sneak peek into what you do, but please tell us yourself.
Well, I'm a publisher. I guess that's how I would describe my role with Sari-Sari Storybooks. Yeah. I wrote two of the books, but the goal of the press is not to self-publish my stories, but to publish a broader range of other writers and art and the illustrators from the Philippines and highlight their work. So really my role is to shepherd and publish and market and all, the whole package around those stories. And I'm also a designer. So, my full-time job is doing graphic designs for freelance clients under New Hard Design. And that's the name I originally set the Etsy shop under, with just playing around with holiday cards. Yeah.
And so now you're doing something pretty unique. You sell greeting cards through New Heart Design on Etsy, but you also sell the books that you publish. How have you found that? Because I think most don't consider Etsy a place for selling publications of that nature, not traditionally anyway.
Yeah, very true. I hadn't thought that at first either. I guess I came to it as sort of a solution to a problem. Like I never integrated a shop on my main website, which is really what I should do, on Sari-Sari-Storybooks.com. And I'm one person running the press and I'm busy and, didn't have time to hire a web developer and all, or whatever easier integration there would be. And so I thought, why don't I just put it on the Etsy shop I already have? Right. And that's how that happened. And the interesting thing is I'm a small publisher and I'm not on Amazon by choice. Oh. So in a way, Etsy, I wouldn't have thought that, before, but it helps me in that it makes my work discoverable through a search engine since I'm not on Amazon. So that's been interesting that people who are looking for Googling Filipino children's stories find my press. So I didn't start out with that idea, but that's one way that Etsy's been really useful. Is this, even if I had a shop on my website, it's a good supplement.
Yeah. So when folks type in that search term into Google, do they end up on Sari-Sari-Storybooks.com or do they more often end up in your shop on Etsy?
I'd have to test it, and I don't know, but I think it's 50-50, if not more leaning towards Etsy. Also, Etsy has started doing the advertising that they'll put out for you.
Yeah.
So sometimes the search will land on one of those ads that I didn't put out, but that Etsy is putting out on my behalf, and then charges back a fee if somebody buys through that link.
Yeah. What's the process when someone orders a book? Do you create them on demand, or do you keep a certain number of each storybook in your inventory and then only reproduce as needed?
In my case, I have boxes of books. So I, separately from Etsy, and I don't know if there would have been a way to integrate. I know like Amazon has like a print on demand option that's integrated.
Yeah.
In my case, I did a print run. I sell directly through events, and I wanted the cost efficiency of it to do a print run. I did a large print run for each book, or large for a small publisher, let's say, like 2,000 on a couple of the books, and then 1,500 on the other two. So I have those books sitting here, and when someone places an order, then I package them and ship them out.
Okay. Is it okay to ask why you prefer not to sell on Amazon? I know it seems like the place to sell books, but I know that, there might be reasons why you want to avoid that.
Yeah. Well, practically, I don't have the numbers pulled up, but I think when I was crunching numbers on selling through Amazon, it wasn't favorable, and they, because of how they can price things, you don't have a lot of control. I don't want to quote wrong information, so I don't want to say something specific that's not quite right. But I remember, Amazon, they can change things as they want, and I don't think as a seller you have a lot of, you're stuck with it if you've built your platform there and they make a change that's not favorable to you. I think they were allowing third parties to kind of they could sell your product and place it higher, I think, on the page than the original person. I can't quite remember the specifics of things like that, but I saw a few things around. I saw a few things that were like that, and that made me pause. And then on top of that, I also just, I don't think they're a very ethical company. I also don't, I don't want to have any shade to people who do sell on Amazon, because I have talked to independent publishers that have found it really helpful.
Yeah.
So, it's people's choice. And if that is working for somebody who wouldn't otherwise get a shot, more power to them,
Right.
But for me, I just really, I don't even really buy things on Amazon. I just really don't like the company. So
Right.
watch, probably in a few years I'll be on there anyway. But, I'll eat my words. But at the moment, I've stayed off there for 5 years, and by choice. So that's something that's really nice about being independent. You can make choices like that if you want to.
Yeah, and that was just the summary I was thinking of in my head. Is the good thing is it's your choice, and you have that choice right now. And if ever you want to go on there, you can, and if you don't, you're doing fine without it.
That's right.
I want to talk a bit more about the books. I'm so curious about the stories. You specifically create and publish children's books in different Filipino languages. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
I have so many questions about that. First of all, and please educate us and myself. I'll be honest, the only Filipino language I was familiar with is Tagalog. And probably most people know that one. How many different languages are there, or just roughly,
The exact count varies a little, but when I was researching it, and caveat, I'm not a linguist,
Okay.
but it was, I think, 181. It's
Wow.
one of the most language diverse countries in the world,
Hmm.
and I mean, honestly, I was born there. I'm mixed race Filipina, and I didn't know there were other languages besides Tagalog until I was in my 30s.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was also sort of, yeah, it's just a lot of feelings around that. Like,
Hmm.
oh, wow. Like, first, like, wonder and surprise, and like, wow, we're one of the most language diverse countries in the world, and that's really wonderful. And then also, why didn't I know that until now?
Exactly. I know. I felt
um,
very what's the word? Like I was shocked that I didn't know, just because I like to think I know things. um and
mm,
are they are they unique languages? They're not dialects of the same language, because I know sometimes
that's right.
people say, they'll interchange those words, and they to me they mean different things. A dialect is different
Hmm.
from a separate language.
That's right. They are separate languages.
Hmm.
And that's what linguists would say, is that they're not dialects of each other.
Hmm.
They are unique languages, even if some share similar words, or
Yeah.
have similar characteristics in some ways. They're not derivatives of the same. They're different.
Yeah.
So that's really special. When you look at the language map, I was looking at a language map of the world with a little yellow dot on the spot of each unique language, and Southeast Asia all over is bright yellow.
Hmm.
So that was really cool,
Yeah.
to see that, and to think, that's there's something about language holds culture,
Hmm.
and the Philippines was a colonized country, and is still, I think, recovering from that. Um, and that's just such a powerful thing, that the languages have survived, and that is like a testament to what can't be erased, and that
Yeah.
of the originality of the culture there. And that's just something really special. I there's one language that is, so most of the languages are of the Austronesian family,
Okay.
but there's one language that I think is really interesting, and it's there's only one of two Spanish Creoles in the world that are like living languages. So one is in the Philippines, and it's called Chabacano, and it's so that's one of my books is in Chabacano in English,
Okay.
and I think that's just really cool that here in the Philippines is this something that's a special language, and it's special to the world, because
Yeah.
it's one of these only two. And the other language is Palanquero, and that's in Colombia. The
Oh.
other Spanish Creole. Um,
And are your books written entirely in the language, or are they bilingual?
they're bilingual,
Okay.
so that's for a few reasons. Big one is marketing, and big one is very ironically, you're speaking to someone who's a monolingual English speaker. I don't even speak Tagalog. I know some,
Yeah.
but I myself I wouldn't be able to read the stories myself or work with people if they were entirely in Philippine languages,
Mm.
and not in English. So, and of course, when you're thinking about, can these books support themselves,
Hmm.
and not be something that's maybe just a donation system? Can they be a marketed product? It's hard to not have it in English or another major language, but English is probably the most marketable language in the world. So,
Right.
and for Philippine diaspora, definitely the largest one is in the United States, and
Yeah.
one of the other largest is in Canada, so, and Australia. So that's an important language, actually,
Yeah. Yeah.
to sell these books in.
Okay. So you had the vision to do this for 10 years, and it only came to fruition. I shouldn't say only. It came to fruition 5 years ago. What was that journey like? Having this idea and knowing you really wanted to do it, but then, realizing how much time it was going to take to actually make it happen.
I've never had a moment like that in my life before. Where I had the idea for the press. I joke it was like my midlife crisis. I had this idea for the press. I wasn't really happy at the job I had, and I think just sort of, where you're going through that point in your life where you're thinking, what am I doing with my life? What's important in the world? How am I contributing? What will I be remembered for? All of those things. And I have a lot of ideas as a creative person that never see the light of day.
Join the club.
Yeah. Like, maybe I'll do a food blog. Maybe I'll take up sewing. Maybe, But this one, it really pulled on me. Why don't I publish multilingual Filipino picture books and use what I know being a designer and what I know about fundraising and everything I have and pour it into this and make these books happen. And that was such a strong idea that I could feel myself thinking, I'm not going to do this if I don't leave my job. Like, this idea will just sit here. I need to travel. I need to put all my focus on these. And that's hard to do when you're working full time and burned out. So I leaped and quit my job and started my freelance business as New Heart Design. So it's not that I spent 5 years only on Sari-Sari Storybooks, but it would sort of go through these cycles of research, take a gig, take a trip to the Philippines for a while, come back, work some more, save some more money, move the project forward, take another trip back, figure it out as I went along. So it was very anxious, but also really exciting and just a really, really magical and wonderful experience. But definitely a lot of, it is I'm just going to walk on this tightrope over a cliff and not look down. I'm just gonna get to the other side. And I think that was the one thing I knew, is that this, with more certainty than I felt about many other things in my life, but just that these books were going to happen. And I had no idea how good it was going to be or what they would look like. But I just sort of that idea, I can make something, I can make some books happen. And so I will do that. And then just really going for that. But just, I guess, confidence that they don't have to be good. They just have to, I just have to produce them, and confidence that would happen. And then just really moving towards that.
I really like that, because I can relate to having so many dreams and ideas of things that one wants to do, or that I shouldn't say one, that I would like to do, and but landing on that one idea, that or that one dream that drives you to do what seems the most scariest of all things, walk away from the security of a job and and that income and benefits and all that, to pursue the dream. I know sounds really glamorous, but I can only imagine how terrifying, that would be, to just, walk away from security into insecurity, but then also the excitement of knowing that you're actually going to make this dream a reality.
Yeah, that's really a good way to put it. Yeah.
Where do the stories come from? Are they traditional folk tales, or are they new stories, like created and written by?
Yeah, they're news stories by intention.
Okay.
One of the stories, Sandangao, which is the What I story, is written by an author who heard this story from his grandfather, but he still gives it his own retelling.
Okay.
But I think for a few reasons, it was really intentional to make new stories, and one of them is just the tone of the press. I want this to be, I didn't want it to feel academic. I didn't want it to feel. I wanted it to feel really modern and like a pop product, and it could sit on shelves in bookstores now, like today, and any kid will want them. I wanted it to feel that way, and not, when you have to retell something traditional, there's a lot of concern around not changing it, not preserving it, which can, I think academic presses, maybe that's a better place for something like that, where the point is like to tell it exactly as it was told, and then the other reason is like I didn't want to step into appropriation issues, and I'm one person running the press. I don't really have the capabilities to really ensure I'm transcribing something that's meant to be a historical record. I don't have that kind of a back team. So deciding to tell a news story that incorporates elements of a particular linguistic cultural group makes a lot more sense. And that's something that my brain fits better as a designer and storyteller today.
Okay, that makes sense actually. As you explain it more. Let's talk about promotion, both of Sari-Sari Storybooks and your Etsy shop. What methods have you found to be the most effective? Do you rely a lot on social media, or even at all on social media, or do you prefer more to do in-person shows and exhibits?
I think that I do rely on social media. I think what's been effective is to have just effort, consistent effort, a marketing effort. And so actually none of these things do I do like very consistently. So I'm probably still discovering what works for me. But a combination of doing in-person events and keeping up a social media presence has been helpful. I haven't found yet doing paid advertising to work for me, but that's not to say that might not work in the future. I don't know that I know the algorithms that would make that successful. And I think with advertising, you have to commit to spending over a period of time. And I'm not sure that would be the right fit for me, though. Maybe it's just a matter of finding the right formula for that. But I think just having a marketing strategy consistently, reaching out to media for doing events, being regular with that, committing to that long term.
How do you pick the events that you participate in? How do you know which ones will be beneficial to what you're trying to accomplish, and which ones are a pass?
I think I'm also still fine-tuning that at the moment. It's interesting because the pandemic really interrupted all of that, and doing physical pop-ups is really quite exhausting, especially if you're just one person. And I don't really have a team of people to help me set up. And I have popped up a few times where it almost doesn't. I've always made my table fee, but sometimes it just isn't quite worth the time and effort for the sales that come out of it. At the same time, though, some of those events, I meet people. Some people have become my friends who have stopped by, especially popping up at here, because I live here in the Bay Area. It's just really wonderful to be with Filipino community, and there's a lot of pop-up markets here that are Filipino themed. So there's also just sort of the happiness of being with your peeps, and I've popped up a couple times with like, I think there's 4 or 5 there's 5 of us now, but a few years ago there were only 3 Filipino children's publishers in the US, and we were all in the Bay Area.
Oh, wow.
And we all know each other. Sawaga River Press and Bridge and Delta, Gail and Justine. So all 3 of us had popped up at one event together, and we're all next to each other. So that's sort of fun to, just the experience of that is fun in itself. But I actually, that's a question that I'm asking myself, is how to decide if something is going to be worth paying a table fee and driving and setting up at. During the 2 years of the pandemic, were my best years, actually. And my online sales were really strong. I got a lot of invitations to do readings online. People, by far, those were the 2 best years. 2020 and 2021. And so it also made me think I don't have to pop up to sell and promote these books, especially since I already had book launches to connect to community all over the US.
On your website, and for anyone who wants to check it out, it's Sari-Sari Storybooks.com. That's SariSarystorybooks.com, which I will also link to in the show notes for this episode. So if you're driving and you can't type it in just yet, I will have all the links so you can check them out. On your website, do you do any content marketing? Like, do you talk about Filipino culture or the process of book publishing or anything like that? Or is it strictly focused on the books and where folks can find you? Is it more of a transactional site, or does it also serve some type of educational and informational purposes too?
Yeah, the intention was to have a blog and write about all these different issues that intersect around my press, around Indigenous languages, around Filipino culture, around independent publishing, which is a really interesting topic, I think, for a lot of people. So I started blogging a little bit when I started the press, but I have not added any new posts in, I think, probably 5 years or 4 years or something like that. Yeah. So, but I love the idea of it not just being a place to just buy the books. There's so I don't know how that's all going to shake out. It's the reason for that, again, is that I'm one person, and I can only do so much, and keeping up with the blog or newsletter is a work in itself. But I that is something, an idea that's marinating in my mind, just because of like the community around the books and the issues. I really loved like talking to other independent publishers. There's just there's so many interesting topics around that and our world, and there's like a real hunger to put our stories out there. And there's a lot that people want to know about publishing, and is hard to figure out. That's just really interesting to talk about. And there's also just so much happening in the Philippines with artists there. I see other independent publishers there. That with making beautiful and interesting work, and I would love to, use some of my space to talk about that.
Right.
Yeah, but at the moment, I'm not.
Yes, I know, and trust me, I get the one-woman show, one person with all the ideas, and only 24 hours. some of which we have to sleep for. So
yeah, but it's good to let things, it's good for ideas to marinate, I think.
yeah.
So maybe that will turn into something later.
Yes. And with revolving passions and, interests, I feel like when the time for writing comes, you'll probably be really, what's the word? Not fluent, what? Profuse. Yeah. It's something that, once you start doing it, can become such second nature. Like I know with the podcast, this was, I think, the third podcast I started, and the first couple, never felt natural enough. So it was very staccato, like, okay, I'll make an episode. And then it was so draining, and it would take a long time before I did it, the next one and the next one. And this one, having these types of conversations just felt so much more natural, and like it was, producing something more than I could ever do as just myself. And then it started to flow, like, oh, okay, these conversations bring life for other people. That it's easy to do this, and it just became, second nature almost. So you'll know when you hit it.
I love that, Ichuama. The being there's an energy that comes from connecting to other people that makes the work easier. That's so true.
Yeah. I would imagine it's the same kind of energy you get when you're with the four other book publishers right there. That circle of friends, and because you guys get it, you have that similarity, same energy, similar goals. And so, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
Have there been times when you've hit up against a wall and just thought, this is it, I can't anymore? And how have you gotten past those roadblocks?
I haven't hit like that wall, like I just want to shut all of this down sort of wall. I have hit burnout and frustration of not being able to sell more than I'd like, or just feeling that I'm supposed to do. There's a long list of tasks I'm supposed to do to make this better that I can't fulfill. I've had that feeling, and then I think I've just kind of let it be and let it ride out. I feel like it's funny. The COVID period has been very, like, all things are forgiven during COVID. Like we've all understood people just wanting to not do more. And
yeah.
So I think that COVID happened after I was having those feelings. So and those were my 2 best years. Because people wanted to support small businesses like mine, and especially
that's true.
Yeah. So I think maybe just taking a rest is important, like acknowledging feeling burned out and taking a pause and seeing what might change, has been helpful for me. If finding support in other people, if one can, is really important. I'm always trying to figure that out as somebody it's mostly me. But one of the most helpful things was taking a public relations course with a public relations coaching with the Papa Lowdown agency here. So it was really wonderful. I was in a cohort of it was 4 Filipina business owners together, coaching with Paloma, who runs Papa Lowdown. So that creates that creates energy, and it creates camaraderie, and it just makes it easier. And I have a friend who she runs a really successful small press, and I would like to talk to her about coaching me. So I think also asking other people for support, or finding, in whatever way that looks, it helps.
Yeah, I agree. I was like, why does Papa Lowdown sound so familiar? I think Robert mentioned her also.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she works with BIPOC creators and women, and she's just great.
Okay. Does she, is what she does live and in person, or is it virtual?
Our coaching was online.
Okay.
I don't know if, I think it's still virtual.
Okay.
Paloma's moved to South California.
Okay.
But yeah, she's got a lot of offerings on her site. She's really wonderful. I can't say enough good things about Papa Lowdown. So,
cool.
Plug
Yeah.
for Papa Lowdown here.
So, Christina, what's something that you're doing now that you would say is working really well for you?
I think that the books have, I think that the groundwork I laid when the books came out, it was a lot of time and energy, but I did book launches in the Philippines. I did book launches all around the US. I want to say I did like 13 in a year.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was a lot. And I think that all the work of getting the press off the ground, there's always more. There's more I want to do and more books I want to sell. But I do think that the Filipino American community and the language, the people interested in children's books that are diverse in the Philippines and these language groups, I've connected to those audiences. So that's a good thing. But it's a very large market to continue reaching out to.
Yeah.
But I do think on Etsy too, I see people buy the books and comment that I didn't even know these kinds of books were available, and I bought them for my kids to teach them about their culture, and or I bought it for my daughter-in-law who's Filipina and she's having a baby. So that's really wonderful to see that.
That is nice. That must be gratifying.
It's very, and it's like I want, more of that would be the goal, where I'm not actually lifting a finger. It's, the books are out there. I did some of the groundwork, and there's some force around it now that's driving it to its audience. So then my job is to just figure out and amplify whatever that background energy is that lets the books find people on their own.
Yeah. What do you see? What would you envision the future of Sari-Sari Storybooks looking like in an ideal world?
It would be larger. There would be a lot more titles. It would be selling more books and reaching more people. That would be the ideal to have. There's 4 titles at the moment. There's a 5th one coming out next year in Maranao. Thank you. But I was saying there's 181 languages, and there's no way my press is not equipped to tackle that. But even if I could get up to 10 languages, there are so many different people of different language backgrounds from the Philippines who ask, are you going to do an Ilocano book? Are you going to do a Pangasinan book? And
oh wow,
it's hard to say no, I can't. There's so much. There's so much to producing one of them that I don't see that in the cards anytime soon. But there's so many languages to tell stories in, and Filipino artists are really incredible. Like, the talent in the Philippines is really high. So it's each of these books has a different artist. So it would be really fun to have, let's say, 10 stories featuring different languages and different artists.
And it's so nice to know that your audience is waiting. That's what I'm hearing, is the audience is waiting.
And I know how it's because people say, and I see it, it's meaningful.
Yeah. Okay, now I have this curveball question for you.
Ready.
If a big publishing house were to come along and want to either partner with you or take over so they can get to all 100 plus languages and produce a book or publish a book in at least 100 of in at least one book in each of the languages. What does that do for you? Does that make you say, yes, take it on, or this is my baby, I'm going to, nurture and grow it, as much as best I can?
I would love a big publisher to be interested, but well, I would only partner with somebody who I felt that we were aligned on, and I'm to the best of my ability, I want to protect my artists and be as I'm an outsider to pretty much all these stories, which is the ironic thing. But I really want to be respectful to the communities that I'm publishing stories about. So I think there's something around scalability that can make it hard in general, that once things become scalable, I think we always think that's a good thing, but there's a lot of issues around scalability, and it introduces a whole new set of variables and can introduce new values, and there's a bigger it means that there's a bigger need to make a profit because somebody's put, unless they just have money to spend, that's baked in, is that they need to make money on their investment. So that can create pressures that I might not want. So if there was somebody who had a lot of money and wanted to, be true to these kind of values and, publish these stories, which, it can be also hard to sell quantities of the more obscure languages. But if they were interested in all that, I would be very interested. But yeah,
okay, good.
or even to tell maybe not 100, but 20 more. I would love to have that conversation with somebody.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think I'm also don't work efficiently in the way I'm creating these books necessarily. So, it's very, it's very boutique, and maybe slowness is good with telling some of these stories. So I'm also not sure that would become scalable for those reasons also. But I think I'm open to, I'd like to be open to seeing new ways of doing things or changing how I do things.
Okay, good. Well, that's good to know. And if there are any book publishers listening, you heard her. Are there any tools or resources that you enjoy using in just day-to-day running your business, either the book publishing or on Etsy, that you don't mind sharing with us?
I don't have tools to recommend. I'm actually looking for other people's recommendations. I just use Google Sheets for most things, or the Google Suite to track and keep myself ordered. So I actually would love to learn more myself.
Okay, cool. What's the best way if folks want to connect with you and get in touch? What's the best way for them to reach out to you and connect?
An email probably is best. I'm Christina with a CH at Sari-Sari Storybooks.com. So Christina at Sari-Sari Storybooks.com. I'm on all the socials. My press is on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. So you can also message me through those platforms. And I should get that. Sometimes the Facebook, the notifications aren't always immediate. So email is really, old reliable email is the best way to reach me.
Okay, great. I will have Christina's email in the show notes for this episode, as well as links to everywhere else you can find her online, including all her socials. But if you have your phone in hand or you're sitting in front of your computer right now, you want to hop over. Her Etsy shop is Newhard Design, NEWHARD DESIGN, and that's on Etsy. And her website is Sari-Sari Storybooks.com. Again, all the links will be in the show notes for this episode. Christina, thank you so much for taking the time out to share about what you're doing and your book publishing. I really, honestly, I do hope the perfect book publisher comes along, not to take away what you're doing, but just to help you, expand to, in a way that feels organic and natural and comfortable for you.
Thank you so much, Ijeoma. This was a really wonderful conversation. Enjoyed talking with you.
Same here. Thank you.
I enjoy your podcast.
Oh, thank you. And I thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. And I will be back with another one next week.